Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of our AP US Government and Politics series on AP14s. Today, we're going to be talking about amendments to the Constitution, as you can see from our mini title, Amend, Amend, Amend. Can't we just make up our minds? So before we begin, let's talk about what we discussed in the last video. In the last video, we talked about the three branches of government, as you can see right here, the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. And we also talked about the checks and balances system. So, as always, click the link right over there for that video. There should be a box or a little bubble or something like that. And just click on that link and you'll be sent back to that video. And you should definitely watch that before you watch this video, just to go in that sequential order. Now today we're going to be discussing a lot of things in this pretty decent sized video. The amendment process, the informal changes, the unwritten constitution, and state and local governments. So are you guys ready? Let's get started. Alright, so first things first, how to amend the Constitution. Well, there are two different proposal methods to propose an amendment. One method is where an amendment goes to both houses of Congress, which are the Senate and the House of Representatives, and a two-thirds majority in each side of the Congress has to approve that amendment. Another proposal amendment, sorry about that, is where a constitutional convention is called by two-thirds of state legislatures. So as you can see, two-thirds is a really important part of the proposal method. Now, however, ratification is a separate process, so after you propose the amendment, you've got to actually vote on it. So 3/4 of all state legislatures have to approve of the amendment. This method has been used 26 times, and there are 27 amendments. The other method is where 3/4 of special state ratifying conventions approve, and this has been used one time. That one time was for the amendment that repealed prohibition, which was created by the 18th Amendment, and Congress at the time thought that the states would not try to vote for it, they wouldn't approve of the amendment, so rather than going through the typical state legislature method, they decided to use a special state ratifying convention method, which they've only used once because, usually when the Congress agrees with something, the state agrees with something, but in this situation they were worried that that wouldn't be the case, so Congress decided to create special state ratifying conventions. As you can see here, 3/4 is a very important number. Ratifying in any amendment, 3/4 is the number you have to think of. I always like to think in the alphabet, R comes after P, and because R is after P, it needs a larger number. So 3/4, which is 0.75, is larger than 2/3, which is 0.666666666. The informal and unwritten constitution. Informal constitution is basically the customs and traditions that have acted like actual amendments. Think, for example, the two-term limit. Despite the fact that there wasn't actually a constitutional amendment until 1951, a lot of presidents, in fact every president prior to FDR, followed that two-term limit where they would run and win a maximum of 2 terms. Some guys ran for multiple more terms, like say Theodore Roosevelt, but none of them actually won more than 2 terms until FDR, at which point he won the 3rd and 4th term and eventually led Congress to devise the 22nd Amendment, which prohibited people from running and winning more than 2 times. Now also there is the unwritten constitution, which are a variety of different things that aren't in the constitution specifically, but have important parts of our government. So for example, judicial review, which isn't in the constitution, but has been part of our judicial branch since 1803, when Chief Justice John Marshall decided in a court case that we'll be talking about later that the courts have the right to negate the laws of the federal government. The political parties and political conventions have also been part of our country ever since the very beginning. Despite the fact that the framers of the Constitution didn't really like it, they are still part of our group and have been working with inside our Constitution for the entire existence of the United States. Also, the cabinet. Despite the fact that the cabinet is not specifically mentioned in the Constitution, George Washington and every president following him have had some sort of cabinet that have different advisors that are able to advise the president on what they think the best policy should be at a certain time. State and local governments. Excuse me, Vermouth. state and local governments get to do basically what they want. They have a lot more freedom under the Constitution when compared to the federal government, but usually they end up following the federal government. All states have an executive branch led by a governor. They also have a National Guard and can grant pardons, reprieves. They've got legislative groups similar to the House of Representatives and the Senate, and have the ability to override the veto of the governor. It works a lot like the federal government. In fact, one of the few things that the state governors have that the president does not have is something called a line item veto. And this is basically something that allows people to reject portions of a bill. So if you like Part A but don't like Part B, the governor is able to strike Part B and still pass the bill. The president actually was denied this in a Supreme Court case because they believed that this would take too much power away from the legislative branch. And that's it, guys. We're actually done. You've now mastered the Constitution and all of its ideas. I'd love to say that this is all of AP US government and politics, but I'm afraid it's not. You see, there's actually one more video after this that I'm going to be explaining each of the amendments pretty briefly, all 27 of them, just to make sure that you guys understand it, because that's a really important part of the exam. You want to know if they say, the 21st Amendment, you want to know that is the amendment that is banning prohibition, or the 18th Amendment is the one that creates prohibition, or the First Amendment is freedom of speech and religion and other things like that. And our next group of videos that we're going to be talking about, as these group of videos were all about the Constitution, our next group is going to be about media and public opinion. So the type of media like newspapers, computers, radios, TVs, books, movies, you name it. We're talking about those things. If you guys don't know that type of radio or what a newspaper is, these are probably things you'll be a lot more familiar with. We also talk about things like social media and how that makes an impact on our government today. Thank you very much. As always, please subscribe, leave a comment in the section below, or like for these videos. Your support is really, really helpful for me to continue making these videos. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.